She was a young woman full of dreams and hope, living a simple life in a small town with big ambitions for her future. She always imagined a happy family, a loving husband, and children who would bring joy and laughter into her home. From the outside, everything seemed normal, but life had a surprise waiting for her, something so unusual that no one around her could have expected. Her life took a turn when she became pregnant for the first time. She and her husband were overjoyed and excited, preparing for the arrival of their first child, but when the day came, she gave birth not to one baby, but to twins. Two tiny lives entered the world at the same time, filling the room with double the cries, double the joy, and double the responsibility. Friends and family were shocked and amazed, and she felt a mix of happiness and fear, knowing that raising twins would be much harder than raising a single child. She still embraced the challenge with all her heart. As time passed, the family adjusted to this new reality. Learning to care for two babies at once, she discovered an inner strength she never knew she had. She stayed up nights feeding, rocking, and comforting them, and while exhaustion often took over, she could never let go of the sense of wonder she felt every time she looked at them. Their tiny fingers, soft voices, and innocent eyes became her world, giving her a new purpose. Then came another surprise that would change her life forever. She became pregnant again, and again. It was twins. The news left everyone around her stunned, including her husband, who began to feel overwhelmed by the thought of raising so many children. The idea of having multiple sets of twins seemed almost impossible to him, and slowly, fear and doubt began to take root. Despite the challenges, she welcomed the second pair of twins with love and determination. She had learned how to manage the chaos of multiple babies, and now she was ready to face it again. With each birth, her resilience grew, and her bond with her children became even stronger. She had a sense that her life would never be ordinary, but she also knew that extraordinary things often came with extraordinary challenges. Her home became a place of constant activity and laughter. With 4 children now, the house was filled with the sounds of tiny feet, playful giggles, and the occasional cries that only a mother can soothe. She learned to organize her days carefully, balancing feeding times, naps, and play, and even though it was exhausting, she never complained, because deep inside, she knew that each moment was precious and would never come again. But life had more surprises in store, and soon, she found herself pregnant again, and yet again, she gave birth to twins. The pattern continued over the next few years, with each new set of twins adding more joy and more responsibility. While many people might have been scared, frustrated, or even angry, she embraced each child with unconditional love. Her home became larger, louder, and busier than ever, but it was also filled with warmth, love, and hope. Through all these unexpected events, she began to understand the true meaning of strength, courage, and resilience. She realized that life does not always follow a simple plan, and sometimes the most extraordinary experiences come when we least expect them. Every new birth, every tiny hand she held, reminded her that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. And so, her journey began, a life that would test her limits, challenge her patience, and shape her into a mother like no other. Little did she know, the surprises were just beginning, and the story of her extraordinary family was only starting to unfold. Her house, once quiet and ordinary, was now a place of miracles, laughter, and life beyond what anyone could have predicted. This was the unexpected beginning of a story that would span decades, a story of love, courage, and the power of a mother's heart. Even in the first moments of her journey, it was clear that her life would never be the same again, and though the challenges ahead were enormous, she faced them with hope, determination, and a heart full of love, ready to embrace the future no matter how unpredictable it might be. Life had already changed dramatically for her after the first few sets of twins, but nothing could have prepared her for what came next. Her husband, who once shared dreams of a happy family, began to feel the weight of their growing household pressing down on him. The joy that had filled their home slowly turned into tension, worry, and fear. He could see the house overflowing with children, the endless diapers, the constant cries, and the mountain of responsibilities, and instead of feeling pride, he felt trapped. At first, he tried to hide it, pretending to be supportive while secretly feeling overwhelmed. He would avoid conversations about the future, spend more time away from home, and make excuses about work. Slowly, the distance between them grew, like a shadow creeping over the sunlight of their early marriage. She noticed the change, sensing that the love that once felt unbreakable was now fragile. But she was too busy caring for the twins to fully confront it, believing that their relationship would survive the chaos of a growing family. Then came the day that would change everything. Her husband told her he could no longer stay, that the life they were living was too much for him to handle. He said he felt suffocated, scared, and unprepared to raise so many children. The words hit her like a thunderstorm, leaving her stunned, heartbroken, and unable to speak. She had imagined challenges, sacrifices, and sleepless nights. But she had never imagined losing the person she had trusted most, the man who had once promised to stand by her side through everything was now walking away, leaving her alone in a house filled with tiny lives depending entirely on her. Friends and neighbors were shocked when they heard the news. They whispered, wondered, and even judged, but she had no time for their opinions. She had 34 little hearts to care for, and there was no moment to waste on sorrow. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders, heavier than she could have imagined, yet, even in her pain, she made a silent promise to herself and to her children. She would never let this abandonment break her. The early days were the hardest. The house felt both fuller and emptier at the same time. Every laughter was a reminder of what she had lost, every cry a challenge she had to face alone. She had to learn to manage everything on her own, cooking, cleaning, feeding, bathing, soothing, and sometimes just sitting quietly with a child who needed comfort. Nights became long and lonely, with only the soft breathing of her babies to keep her company. But slowly, she discovered something remarkable, an inner strength she had never known existed. She began to see that abandonment did not have to mean defeat. She found ways to cope, to plan, and to organize, even when it seemed impossible. The first steps were small, setting routines, asking for help from neighbors, and learning to trust herself as the sole protector of her children. With each passing day, she grew more confident, more resilient, and more determined. Her children became her reason for everything, their tiny smiles and soft hands reminding her that life was still full of beauty and hope. Even the hardest moments brought lessons. She learned patience beyond measure, courage beyond what she thought was possible, and the ability to love without limits. Each day, she proved to herself that a mother alone could accomplish what many believed required too, and through it all, her children thrived, absorbing her love and guidance like little sponges, oblivious to the heartbreak that had touched their lives. Though the absence of her husband left a hole in her heart, it also revealed the immense power of her own spirit. She realized that sometimes life takes away what we think we need to show us what we are capable of, and as she looked around at the 34 tiny faces watching her, waiting for her to feed them, play with them, and guide them, she understood that she was not just surviving, she was building a family, a legacy, and a story that would inspire others. Abandonment had tried to break her, but instead, it became the spark that ignited her determination. Her journey was far from easy, but even in that first storm of loneliness and fear, she learned that love, courage, and resilience could turn despair into strength. That was the beginning of a life that would astonish the world, and though the shadows of the past lingered, her light began to shine brighter than ever. Raising one child is a challenge. Raising twins is a monumental task. But raising 34 children alone, that was a reality she faced every single day, and yet, somehow, she made it work. After her husband left, the weight of responsibility fell entirely on her shoulders, but she refused to let despair define her life. Every morning, before the sun even rose, she would wake to the sounds of tiny cries and restless feet, the house already alive with movement, energy, and chaos. Each day was a delicate balancing act, a careful choreography of feeding, bathing, dressing, and comforting. With 34 children, there was never a moment to rest. She learned to feed 3 babies at once while rocking another 2, humming softly to calm them, and preparing bottles for the rest. Some mornings, she would sit exhausted in the kitchen, surrounded by a mountain of laundry and empty formula bottles, but the sight of her children's innocent eyes and tiny smiles renewed her energy, reminding her why she could never give up. The challenge wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Every child needed attention, love, and reassurance. Some were shy, some mischievous, some needed extra care and patience. She quickly realized that she couldn't treat all of them the same way. Each child was unique and needed their mother's presence in a way that only she could give. She developed a system, assigning herself small pockets of one-on-one time whenever possible, reading a bedtime story to one, helping another with learning, or simply holding a crying baby until they felt safe. Mealtime was another battle entirely. Cooking for 34 mouths was a daily feat that tested her creativity and stamina. She learned to prepare large batches of food, sometimes inventing recipes from scratch, and always ensuring that every child had enough to eat. Despite limited resources, she never allowed her children to go hungry. Even when money was tight, she found ways to stretch every penny, buy in bulk, and make meals feel special. She celebrated small victories, a child finally learning to eat independently, a sibling helping another, or all the children sitting together peacefully for a few minutes. Education and growth became another priority. She wanted her children to have opportunities she never had, so she made learning a daily ritual. Reading, writing, and basic arithmetic were part of everyday life, taught in turns, sometimes to small groups of children at a time. She encouraged curiosity, creativity, and independence, often using household items to create lessons and games. Slowly, her children began to excel, surprising even her with their intelligence, adaptability, and eagerness to learn. Despite the overwhelming workload, she found joy in the little moments. The laughter of siblings playing together, the first steps of a toddler, or the quiet moments when a child curled up beside her, all of these became her fuel. She celebrated birthdays with handmade decorations, improvised games, and a spirit of togetherness. Her home, though noisy and chaotic, was full of warmth, love, and a sense of family unity that even outsiders could feel when they visited. Yet, not every day was easy. There were nights of relentless crying, days when illness struck multiple children at once, and moments when she questioned her own strength. But each challenge reinforced her resilience. She discovered that she could manage more than she ever imagined, that patience could stretch beyond limits, and that love, sheer love, could overcome any obstacle. She became not just a mother, but a teacher, nurse, chef, and manager, an entire world rolled into one person. Neighbors and relatives watched in awe. Many doubted that a single woman could manage such a household, but she proved them wrong every single day. Her home became a symbol of determination, and though she was alone, she never let loneliness define her. Her children were her constant companions, her motivators, and her greatest source of pride. They laughed, learned, and grew under her unwavering guidance, forming bonds that would last a lifetime. As the years passed, she realized that raising 34 children alone was no longer just a challenge, it was a triumph. Every obstacle she overcame, every tear she wiped, every lesson she taught, became a story of courage and love. Her life, once unimaginable, had become extraordinary, not because it was easy, but because she refused to surrender to fear, hardship, or despair. In the chaos of a crowded house, she found her purpose, her strength, and her reason to keep going, knowing that she was shaping not just children, but a legacy that would inspire generations. As her children grew, it became clear that raising them wasn't just about feeding, clothing, and caring for them, it was about shaping their minds, nurturing their talents, and preparing them for a life that was bigger than the walls of their crowded home. She realized early on that education was not a luxury, it was a lifeline, a path that could transform the future of her extraordinary family. Every day became an opportunity to teach, guide, and inspire, even when the house was loud and the tasks never ending. She started with the basics. Reading aloud to the little ones, showing them how letters formed words, and gently guiding them to write their first sentences became a daily ritual. The twins often sat side by side, some eager and bright, others more reluctant, yet she treated each child as an individual, knowing that every mind was different. Every success, no matter how small, became a celebration, a first word written, a math problem solved, a new story read aloud. These moments, simple to some, were victories of courage and determination in her home. As the children grew older, she recognized talents and interests that were unique to each child. Some loved numbers, and she encouraged them with puzzles and games. Others were drawn to art, spending hours drawing, painting, or crafting little projects from scraps she had collected around the house. A few loved music, tapping rhythms on tables or singing melodies she had never taught them. Each talent was a spark that she nurtured with patience, encouragement, and pride, even when resources were scarce. She also understood that education was not just about books and lessons, it was about life skills, empathy, and responsibility. With so many children, cooperation became essential. She taught them to share, to help one another, and to take responsibility for small tasks, like washing dishes, cleaning their rooms, or caring for the younger siblings. Every act of responsibility became a lesson in independence, building confidence that would last a lifetime. Financial challenges often made formal schooling difficult, but she refused to let that stop her. When public schools couldn't provide enough support, she created learning spaces at home, turning the living room into a classroom, the kitchen table into a study desk, and the backyard into a playground for physical education. She improvised, innovated, and turned every space into an opportunity for learning, showing her children that knowledge didn't come only from teachers or books, it came from creativity, curiosity, and perseverance. Encouragement and praise were constant tools in her parenting. She knew that children respond not only to discipline but to recognition of their efforts. Whether a child solved a difficult problem, learned a new skill, or simply showed kindness to a sibling, she celebrated it wholeheartedly. Her words became a fuel for their growth, teaching them to believe in themselves and their abilities. Even in the middle of chaos, there was always room for learning and discovery. The older children began to mentor the younger ones, a practice she encouraged. They helped each other with lessons, taught games, and learned patience and empathy in the process. This created a unique culture in their home, where learning was a shared adventure, not a chore, not a burden, but a journey that everyone contributed to, strengthening bonds and building teamwork. Years passed, and her efforts bore fruit. The children grew not only in knowledge but in character. They became curious, creative, and responsible individuals, capable of thinking for themselves and helping others. Their accomplishments started to attract attention in the neighborhood, with teachers and community members amazed at how a single mother could raise such intelligent, disciplined, and talented children. Through it all, she never lost sight of the bigger picture, that education was not just for success in school, but for life. She wanted her children to be kind, resilient, and confident, to have the skills to face challenges that she could never have imagined. Every lesson taught, every story shared, every small achievement celebrated, was a step toward that goal. Her home, once a place of survival, had become a sanctuary of growth, creativity, and learning, a place where children learned not only from books, but from life itself, guided by a mother whose love and determination knew no limits. And in the process, she proved something remarkable, that even in the most overwhelming circumstances, a mother's guidance and a child's curiosity can turn the impossible into extraordinary success. Life, as she had learned, was never easy, and raising 34 children alone was a lesson in endurance, patience, and courage unlike anything she had imagined. Even as her children grew older and started showing remarkable talents, every day brought new challenges, testing her strength and determination. Some days were filled with small victories, children learning new skills, helping one another, or achieving success at school, but others reminded her how fragile and unpredictable life could be. Health challenges were some of the hardest battles. With so many children, illness was inevitable. Fevers, colds, and accidents often struck multiple children at once, leaving her to juggle medications, doctor visits, and round-the-clock care. Sometimes, she would spend entire nights awake, comforting sick children, administering medicine, and quietly praying for their recovery. Yet even in these difficult moments, she refused to give in to despair, teaching her children the first lesson of life: resilience. Financial struggles were another constant. Feeding, clothing, and educating 34 children required a level of resourcefulness few could imagine. She worked tirelessly, taking up multiple jobs, saving every penny, and finding creative ways to provide for her family. Every small success, buying new school supplies, preparing a nutritious meal, or even celebrating a birthday with a homemade cake, was a triumph that reminded her children that hard work and perseverance could overcome any obstacle. Despite these challenges, she also taught her children life lessons that money could never buy. She emphasized kindness, compassion, and empathy, reminding them that success was not only about achievements but also about the way they treated others. The older children were encouraged to mentor the younger ones, to help them learn, and to care for them, creating a culture of cooperation, understanding, and respect. In her home, mistakes were lessons, failures were opportunities, and every challenge was a chance to grow. Even the simplest moments became powerful life lessons. Folding laundry became a lesson in patience, cooking meals became a lesson in planning and teamwork, and helping a sibling learn to read became a lesson in leadership and responsibility. She understood that raising 34 children was not just about survival, it was about preparing them for life, teaching them to face difficulties with courage, and showing them that even the hardest paths could lead to success. The emotional challenges were perhaps the most profound. Her children sometimes fought, argued, or became frustrated with one another, and managing such emotions in a household of 34 was a monumental task. She learned to listen patiently, mediate conflicts fairly, and encourage forgiveness, showing her children that love and understanding could resolve even the toughest disagreements. These lessons in empathy and emotional intelligence would shape them into adults who not only excelled academically but also cared deeply for others. Through all the trials, she never let fear dominate her. Abandonment by her husband had taught her a vital truth: life would throw challenges at her, but surrendering to fear or despair would solve nothing. Instead, she faced every problem head-on, with courage, intelligence, and a relentless sense of responsibility, and in doing so, she taught her children the most important life lesson of all, that resilience, courage, and determination could transform even the hardest circumstances into opportunities for growth and success. Her home became a microcosm of life itself. Laughter mingled with tears, arguments blended with lessons, and every challenge, whether small or large, was an opportunity to learn, adapt, and grow. In this environment, her children developed qualities that would serve them well for the rest of their lives: responsibility, compassion, creativity, and independence, all nurtured by a mother whose love and vision knew no bounds. By the time the children reached their teenage years, the lessons she had instilled were evident. They were not only talented and intelligent but also empathetic, resilient, and confident, capable of facing challenges, helping others, and appreciating the sacrifices that had shaped their lives. Her struggles had become the foundation of their strength, proving that even in the most difficult circumstances, life could be transformed by love, courage, and determination. And through it all, she remained their guiding light, their teacher, their protector, and their inspiration, showing the world that even a single mother, faced with overwhelming odds, could raise not just children, but extraordinary human beings who carried lessons of life, hope, and resilience in their hearts. As the years passed, the little children who once filled the house with soft cries and tiny footsteps began to grow into curious, lively teenagers. The chaos of babyhood transformed into the vibrant energy of adolescence, and with it came a new set of challenges and incredible surprises. The mother, now seasoned in patience, love, and resourcefulness, watched her children navigate this new stage with wonder and pride, realizing that raising 34 children had prepared her for anything life could throw her way. The teenage years brought individuality and personality into sharp focus. Each child was no longer just a twin or one among many. They were unique beings with dreams, talents, and ambitions. Some were athletic, running faster than she ever could have imagined. Others were creative, painting, writing, or playing musical instruments with surprising skill. A few were quiet thinkers, absorbing knowledge, solving problems, and asking questions that challenged even her. She marveled at how each child had grown into their own person, yet still remained deeply connected to their siblings, forming a bond that seemed unbreakable. School life added another layer to the transformation. The children were now attending classes, taking exams, joining clubs, and participating in competitions. Despite the challenges of a large household, they excelled academically and socially, often surprising teachers with their intelligence, discipline, and teamwork. Their achievements were a reflection of the foundation their mother had laid. Her insistence on education, curiosity, and resilience had taken root, and the results were evident in every success, small or large. Friendships, both inside and outside the family, began to play an important role. The teenagers learned to navigate social relationships, forming bonds that went beyond their household. Some friends were fascinated by their story, unable to believe that a single mother had raised such a large and talented family. Others simply admired their maturity, teamwork, and sense of responsibility, qualities that were rare in teenagers of any household. The mother quietly observed, proud of the adults they were becoming, but also aware that adolescence was a time of discovery, mistakes, and learning. Challenges continued, of course. Teenagers have their own struggles, arguments with siblings, disagreements with parents, and a push for independence, but the lessons she had taught them early on helped them navigate these challenges with remarkable grace. She encouraged open communication, understanding, and self-reflection, turning every conflict into an opportunity to grow stronger and closer as a family. Her children learned to handle setbacks, celebrate successes without arrogance, and support one another in ways that left outsiders amazed. Talents and passions began to shine in unexpected ways. Some excelled in academics, winning awards and scholarships. Others pursued creative outlets, performing in music, dance, or art. A few discovered entrepreneurial skills, selling crafts, tutoring younger children, or organizing small community projects. The diversity of their achievements reflected the diversity of their personalities, and the mother reveled in the joy of seeing dreams take shape, knowing that her guidance had created a safe space for each child to explore their potential. Through it all, family remained the center of everything. Despite their growing independence, the siblings were inseparable, often working together on school projects, helping each other with chores, and celebrating milestones together. The mother's vision of a close-knit, loving household had been realized, and the teenagers became not just her children, but partners in maintaining the household, mentors to younger siblings, and examples of resilience and compassion for everyone around them. By the end of the teenage years, it was clear that something extraordinary had happened. The children had transformed from fragile infants into confident, talented, and compassionate young adults, ready to take on the world. Yet, the mother knew that this transformation was not just their achievement, it was the result of years of guidance, love, and relentless dedication. Of every sleepless night, every lesson taught, every meal cooked, and every challenge faced together. Her heart swelled with pride as she looked at her children, realizing that the chaos of the past had given way to brilliance, individuality, and strength. 34 children, each unique, each talented, each extraordinary in their own way, had grown up together under one roof, forming a family that was not only remarkable but inspiring. And in the quiet moments, she reflected on how far they had all come, knowing that the teenage transformations were only the beginning of an even more incredible journey. 20 years had passed since the day her life changed forever. The tiny infants she once held in her arms, those fragile little twins who had demanded so much love, attention, and care, had grown into remarkable adults. 34 unique individuals, each with their own story, achievements, and personality, now stood as living proof of her unwavering dedication, perseverance, and love. The house, once overflowing with restless energy, sleepless nights, and constant noise, had transformed along with its occupants. What once seemed chaotic had become organized, vibrant, and full of life in a different, more meaningful way. Her children had grown confident, capable, and compassionate, their personalities shining through in ways that brought her immeasurable pride. Yet, even as they ventured into the world, their bond with one another and with their mother remained unbreakable. Many of her children had pursued education, careers, and passions with determination. Some had become doctors, teachers, and engineers, driven by the lessons their mother had instilled. Others had followed creative paths in art, music, and writing, finding joy in expression and innovation. A few had embraced entrepreneurship, building small businesses and helping their communities. And all of them credited their success to the foundation their mother had laid, the values she had taught, and the love she had given. Family gatherings were now moments of pride and nostalgia, where stories of their childhood chaos became anecdotes that made everyone laugh. The once tiny siblings shared jokes about sleepless nights, spilled bottles, and homework battles, and even though their lives had expanded beyond the home into colleges, workplaces, and families of their own, they always returned to celebrate milestones together. Their bond was a living testament to the power of love, shared struggles, and a mother's guidance. Her own life had transformed as well, though in ways that were quieter, more reflective, and deeply fulfilling. She had weathered storms of abandonment, financial hardship, and exhaustion, yet here she stood, surrounded by children who were successful, kind-hearted, and capable of facing life's challenges with courage. What had once seemed like an impossible journey had become a story of triumph, resilience, and hope. Her sacrifices had not only shaped her children, they had shaped her legacy. Community members often marveled at the family she had raised, how a single mother, abandoned by her husband, could nurture 34 children into thriving adults seemed impossible to many, yet for her, it had never been about proving others wrong, it had been about love, responsibility, and the unwavering belief that she could guide her children to become the best versions of themselves. Each achievement, each milestone, each act of kindness from her children became a reflection of her lifelong devotion. Reunions and celebrations now carried a sense of wonder, as her children showcased the paths they had chosen. Their successes were diverse, yet all were connected by shared values, resilience, compassion, curiosity, and the determination to face life head-on. She watched as her children supported each other, guided their younger siblings, and extended the lessons of family unity to the next generation. It was more than a family, it was a legacy, a living example of what love, courage, and perseverance could achieve. Looking back, she realized how far they had come, from sleepless nights and tiny cribs to graduations, careers, and families of their own. The journey had been filled with challenges, heartbreak, and moments of doubt, but each obstacle had strengthened them, each struggle had taught lessons, and each sacrifice had borne fruit in the form of strong, capable, and remarkable adults. The story of their lives was no longer just about survival, it was about triumph, growth, and the extraordinary power of maternal love. And as she looked around at the 34 adults who had grown under her care, she felt a quiet satisfaction, a deep sense of fulfillment that no words could fully capture. Her children were not just her legacy, they were her proof that even in the face of abandonment, adversity, and overwhelming odds, love, perseverance, and faith in one's abilities could create something truly extraordinary. 20 years later, the family she had raised had become a living testament to hope, courage, and the power of never giving up. The story of her life, and the lives of her 34 children, had reached a point that was nothing short of extraordinary. It was no longer just a tale of survival or endurance, it had become a story of resilience, triumph, and the transformative power of love. Every hardship she had faced, every sleepless night, every moment of fear or doubt had led to this moment. A moment where her family stood as a living testament to courage and determination. Her journey had been marked by abandonment, financial struggles, societal judgment, and the immense responsibility of raising 34 children alone, yet, she had turned every challenge into an opportunity, every difficulty into a lesson, and every tear into motivation. What could have broken her had instead strengthened her, and in the process, it had shaped the lives of her children, giving them a foundation built not only on care and guidance but on resilience itself. Her children had grown into remarkable adults, intelligent, compassionate, and confident. Each one carried within them a piece of their mother's strength, a reflection of the sacrifices she had made, and the lessons she had instilled. From the youngest to the eldest, they had learned to persevere, to value education, to pursue their dreams, and to remain loyal to one another. Their achievements were more than personal victories. They were symbols of a family that refused to be defined by adversity. But the legacy was not only in accomplishments, it was in values, in the way they supported each other, the way they approached life's challenges with courage, and the way they treated others with kindness and respect. She had taught them that resilience was not just about enduring hardships but about responding to them with love, patience, and determination. And as she looked around at the adults they had become, she knew that these lessons would continue to influence generations to come. The community around them had watched this family grow, often in disbelief. Some had doubted that a single mother could manage, let alone thrive with such an enormous household, but through her dedication, vision, and unwavering love, she had not only raised 34 children, she had raised a family that inspired others to believe in hope, perseverance, and the power of human strength. Her home had become a symbol, a living example that courage and resilience can turn the impossible into the extraordinary. Even as her children started families of their own, the bond they shared with her and with each other remained unbreakable. Family gatherings became celebrations of achievement, love, and connection, filled with laughter, storytelling, and shared memories, the lessons they had learned under her guidance, compassion, responsibility, courage, were passed down, ensuring that her legacy extended far beyond her own life, touching countless others indirectly. Her story also served as a reminder that resilience is not always visible in grand gestures, it often exists in quiet, consistent actions, the countless nights she spent soothing crying babies, the tireless days she devoted to their education, the patience she showed in guiding each child. These were the small acts that had created an enormous impact, proving that true strength often lies in persistence, love, and unwavering commitment. And so, the legacy she left was not measured only by success, talent, or fame, it was measured by the lives she had touched, the values she had instilled, and the unbreakable bond she had built within her family. 34 children, each thriving in their own way, carried forward the lessons of resilience, love, and courage that their mother had lived every day, a story that would continue to inspire others, reminding the world that no challenge is too great when faced with determination and love. In the quiet moments, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from abandonment to triumph, from sleepless nights to celebrations of success. Her life had been far from ordinary, yet it had been meaningful, extraordinary, and powerful. The legacy of resilience she had created was permanent, living in her children, their children, and the countless people who had witnessed and been inspired by their story. And in that legacy, she found not just pride, but peace, knowing that love, courage, and perseverance had shaped something truly unforgettable.